Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Adam. I'm the project manager for Ripple Energy. We've got our Members Day here at Kirk Hill today, and you can see a bus behind me with about 50 out of the 450 members that are paying a visit to the wind farm today to see their turbines in action. It's a lovely, sunny, windy day, which is absolutely perfect. We know that many of you weren't able to make it, but don't worry, we've got a virtual tour for you instead. So let's go. Go up, we'll back up the U62 to the main entrance, and then along Road 1, which takes us to Turbine 3, then T2, then T1. So you can see some big boulders we've put at the side of the track here. This is just to protect from drop-offs where there's maybe a ditch or a steep section, and that's just for safety in case there was ever ice or snow in the future. You can see there's a number of new passing places that we've created on this this road as well. And I should say too, this is the end of our grid connection here, so it's an underground cable from the terminal pole here up to the substation, and then we've got several kilometres of overhead line then back to the substation at Maybole. Maybe speak about the grid a little bit as we're driving the route of the end of the grid connection. So yeah, it's around 5 kilometres in total. It connects back into Maybole grid supply point, so that's where the distribution network meets the transmission network, which operates at a higher voltage. So in Scotland, transmission starts from 132,000 volts, 132 kV, and so at Maybole substation there's some big transformers which step the voltage up from 33 kV up to 132 kV, and from there it's transmitted out on large metal pylons. So a fair chunk of the power from Kirk Hill will get absorbed locally on the distribution network, but particularly on days like this when it's very windy and all the wind farms locally will be at high output, there will be a fair bit getting exported onto the transmission network as well. So in terms of these buildings here, the first one you'll see is the Scottish Power substation. So the power is regulated through that, and that allows Scottish Power to isolate the site. So within that there's a big set of switchgear as well as various other control panels and so on. Then the further away one is the client switchgear building, so that has a separate set of switchgear that we control, so that we can isolate ourselves from the grid if needs be. And it also has our SCADA system, so it's the supervisory control and data acquisition system, so that's the kind of brains of the wind farm. So that's in the small room you can see on the left. The main switchgear is in the right. And then behind the metal palisade fence is our auxiliary transformer, so that's quite a small transformer that just steps down the voltage from 33 kV to low voltage, and that's used for all the kind of low voltage demands in both the substations, so heat and lighting and the control for the SCADA units and so on. So as I say, we will head up this road here, which is Road 1, mentioned before, but the 300-hour maintenance, as the name suggests, is what gets completed in the turbines after their first 300 hours of run time. So it's a one-off type of servicing. It only happens at this point in the turbine's lifespan, and they check quite a number of things, but primarily it's a matter of checking all the torque of the bolts in the towers to ensure that nothing is loosened off during the first period. We're approaching Turbine 2. So Turbine 2 is going to be one of the most productive ones on the site because it's at one of the highest parts of the site, and it's looking straight into the prevailing wind from the southwest. I know I've mentioned it many times before, but we've got Ailsa Craig in the background as the amazing island that you can see just kind of faintly today through the haze. So we've just gone through a set of gates obviously, and the area we've gone through near T3, there's cattle in the field. We're now into the area that previously had lots of commercial Sitka forest. You can just see some of the remaining trees in the distance there. But you can see already how much this area is greened up after just a couple of years post-felling, which is really good to see. So this area isn't currently grazed, but over to the left is just over the deer fence is where we've planted tens of thousands of trees. I can never remember how many, but I think it's in the region of about 50,000 or so, all native species. And yeah, good to see them. They're coming along really well. So we're now coming up to the highest point of the site. On the right, the little branch you can see there is just a turning area, so the lorries and the crane are so long that they need that turning area to turn around when they're at a dead end like we've got here at T1. So there's a few of those turning heads throughout the site. And yeah, this is us coming up to T1 now. So this turbine is Squall McCartney, and well named because normally, or often at least, you have a great view of the Mull of Kintyre from here. Not today, I'm afraid. It's a little bit too grey. So we're going to head back down to Turbine 2. Turbine 2's name is Ailsa, after Ailsa Craig, that again you can just about see in the distance. Okay, moving on back to T3. Okay, so there we are, T3, and as I mentioned, this is very close to the summit of Kirk Hill, and so this one is the captain. It is Captain Kirk Hill. So we're going to head back down to the compound now, and then on towards T5. It's worth saying about the name Kirk Hill. I don't have any evidence to suggest why it's called Kirk Hill, but my guess would be that at one point this was land that was owned by the church. Kirk is the Scots word for church, and the church in Scotland, much like the church in England, used to own quite a lot of land, possibly still does own quite a lot of land. There's certainly some land down near Kirkoswald that's called Kirklands, quite near one of the old churches there, suggesting that was probably ground that was owned by the church, maybe rented out for farming. So I suspect that Kirk Hill was also owned by the church at one stage. As I say, just a theory, but that would be my guess. Certainly no churches up here. There is an old ruined cottage you can just see over to the right, but yeah, no other buildings particularly nearby here. So this is us coming up to T5, there's still a few containers here at the moment with some of Enercon's equipment, but that will all be gone quite soon. T5 is Tina Turner. She just keeps on turning. So heading off now. This is continuation of Road 2, which takes us on to turbines 4, 6 and 7. So this is quite a wet part of the site. There's quite a lot of ditches here that intersect the road. So again, more boulders protecting those steep drop-offs, and lots more of these cable markers as well, in case we ever have to do any work clearing the drains in future. So we're coming now to the junction of roads 2 and 3. This is just the end of road 2, coming up to where it meets road 3. So this was quite a tricky junction to get right. It's a little bit of a detail, but we had to be able to take turbines left around this corner and also right down to T6 and T7. And there's quite a steep gradient there, as you can see. There's very fixed particular limits for not only gradients but things like camber on the road, crossfall to one side, and also the vertical radius. So if there's too much of a crest in the road, then that could cause the blades or the blade trailer to ground out because it's so long. So this was actually quite a tricky junction to get designed right. We've put up these signs in the middle just to keep cars going in the right places, so that the levels don't change in future with vehicles tracking over it. And then another relatively steep section of road. This is getting up to about 10% gradient here, up to turbine 4. So I think T4 is my favourite turbine out of all the ones on the site. It was just nice and easy. There was nothing particularly complicated here, and like all the others, it is really pumping out the kilowatt hours today. So turbine 4. Turbine 4 is called Fin. So turbine blade is a bit like a fin, but also there's a legend around these parts about the Irish giant Finn McCool, who threw a rock into the Irish Sea, and that became Ailsa Craig. And he was reputed to live in a cave somewhere around here on the Ayrshire coast. So we thought Finn was a good name. So moving on, next stop is dead ahead of us, and that's turbine 6. So this is also quite a good vantage point here actually to see the grid connection route on the hillside. So you can see it's dead ahead of us now, the H pole, which is the terminal pole for the grid connection. And you might just in that dip in the crest of the hill, you might just be able to see more of the power lines there as well. So that's the connection route continuing over the hillside towards Maybole. So as we come down the hill here to T6, This is where we had to do one of the biggest sort of cuts. You can see the cut quite visibly here, and that was to ensure that, again, we had the right balance of kind of gradients coming down, not an excessive vertical radius at the bottom, and then flattening out to create the big flat hard standing area. I'll just point out here, there's a slightly different arrangement. This elevated area here over on the right is the blade laydown area, so that's where the turbine blades were stored, and we were able to minimize the amount of cutting we had to do by just using the natural terrain there and just keeping that element slightly higher, because that was able to be slightly higher than the rest of the crane pad. Turbine 6 is called Malin, M-A-L-I-N. So those of you who listen to the shipping forecast on Radio 4 might be familiar with the name. Malin is the name given to the area of sea just offshore here that you can see around Arran and the Ayrshire coast, and that was the bit of sea that all these turbines sailed through on their final part of their sea journey from all the different places that they were manufactured. So as we come down here, the area on the right, this used to be, not that long ago, a massive hole in the ground, because this was our borrow pit, our temporary quarry, where a lot of the rock used in construction was won from. So as you can see, it's all now starting to green up, which is great. It's all been backfilled with subsoil and topsoil that was generated elsewhere on the site. So you would hardly know it was there. It looked very different at the start of the project when we started winning stone from it. And this road down here is the steepest part of the site, so this is about a 12% gradient in places. So what that meant is that we needed additional towing vehicles coming down here just to ensure there was enough braking traction for all the heavy components as they got taken down to Turbine 7, which is what you can see in front of you now. So on the right hand side we've got a bit of a turning head, again for vehicles to turn around, and here you can see the crane pad opening up. T7's got a slightly different design of crane pad to the rest. It's more elongated, so down at the far end where you can see the cones, we had one crane sat there for a while to offload the blades, which were located kind of in the middle of the shot now, and then roughly where I am at the moment is where the main crane was, and all the towers and things were stored over in front of us. So this was just a slightly different design of crane pad because of the terrain here. This minimised the amount of cut and fill we had to do, so it reduced the amount of both earthworks essentially. Turbine 7 has been named Gale, which is a great name for a turbine. So we're heading out of the compound here and back onto public road. So this road is the U62 Roughnuke Road, and this was the main delivery route for all the turbines. So it's changed quite a lot since the turbines came in. We had to widen this road out from the width you can see at the moment. It had to be widened out to between 4 and 5 meters to meet Enercon's specifications. And that was pretty essential, because the road width you can see at the moment is I think about 2.8 meters. The crane has a running width of fully 3 meters, so we had to widen it out. That was done temporarily with stone out to one side, and then following completion of the deliveries, we resurfaced all this section of road, and we pulled in the topsoil that had been stored at the edges to reinstate it back to the road's original width, which is what the council planners wanted to see. So that was quite a big bit of work, but we're really pleased with how it's looking now. It's a lovely, smooth bit of road, and as you can see, it's revegetated very nicely. T8 is a little bit of an outlier from all the rest, and it's in a separate field and located as well on the other side of the public road. So you can see there's some big power lines here we're just heading under. These are 33 kV, 33,000 volts, and you may well be wondering why we didn't just connect directly into that, because that was an existing line. I've often wondered the same. It would have made life a lot easier and cheaper if we'd been able to do that, but unfortunately it's not down to us, it's down to the grid operator, and because of the size of the wind farm, it needed a new dedicated line built back. So that's why we weren't able to use it. So you can see some cable markers here for where the cable, which runs along the left hand side of the road first, and then the right where it crosses under the road. And so those cable markers are important things to have, just so that if maintenance is ever being done on the site in the future, then people know where the cables are. We'll also use these things called CAT scanners to scan the ground for any underground services like cables before any excavation work. So this is us coming up to T8. Yeah, this is the same 33 kV line here that I was talking about a minute ago. So as I say, we're not connected directly into this one. This one runs from around about Maybole down to Girvan. But we did have to be very careful working in close proximity to this line. There's always special procedures you need to put in place working near electricity lines, particularly when you've got excavators with long booms and cranes and so on. So here we are at Turbine 8 with its resident sheep. And it's turned out to a very beautiful day here, so really nice view here of the rest of the site as well. So moving left to right, I guess, we've got T5, then T3 behind T6, then T4, T2, T7 nearest to us, and then T1. And this one is called Suitor Johnny. So Suitor Johnny is, and I hope I'm not going to get this wrong, Suitor Johnny was a character from a Burns poem, Tam O'Shanter, and Rabbie Burns went to school for a period in Kirkoswald, which is the nearest village to Kirk Hill, and also a very fine pub in Kirkoswald called Suitor's Inn. So we hope you enjoyed that tour around the site. Thanks again for helping us on the journey here at Kirk Hill. It's been amazing having everyone on board. This is what real people-powered community climate action looks like.